March 22, 2028, NASA issued a brief statement. Artemis Base, humanity's first permanent lunar colony, was being evacuated due to critical life support failures. 37 personnel were extracted over a 48-hour period. The base was sealed, operations suspended indefinitely. The official report cited solar radiation damage to environmental systems, technical difficulties with water recycling. Nothing unusual, nothing that couldn't be fixed. But on March 19th, 3 days before the evacuation order, geologist Dr. Sarah Kozlov transmitted a message to Mission Control that was immediately classified.
4 words that changed everything.
They were here first. The lunar surface now hosts 3 small research stations. They study the moon's surface. They collect samples. They observe Earth. But no one goes underground anymore. No one enters the lava tubes. This is why we abandoned Artemis Base. This is what we found beneath the moon. The moon has no atmosphere, no magnetic field, no protection from solar radiation or micrometeorite impacts. Living on the lunar surface means constant exposure to hazards that would kill an unprotected human in minutes. That's why Artemis Base was built underground.
The moon's ancient volcanic activity
Created vast networks of lava tubes. Tunnels formed billions of years ago when molten rock carved channels through the lunar crust. Some of these tubes are enormous, hundreds of meters wide, kilometers long, with ceilings thick enough to shield against radiation. NASA's Artemis program identified a lava tube near the lunar South Pole, close to permanently shadowed craters that contained water ice. The perfect location for humanity's first permanent off-world colony. Construction began in 2026. The initial crew of 12 lived in temporary habitats on the surface, while robotic systems excavated and reinforced sections of the lava tube. By 2027, the main habitat modules were operational: living quarters, laboratories, life support systems, hydroponics bays. By January 2028, Artemis Base housed 37 people: scientists, engineers, geologists, mission specialists. The crew rotated every 6 months, with resupply missions arriving monthly from Earth. Dr. Sarah Kozlov arrived on January 15, 2028, a geologist specializing in lunar volcanism and regolith formation. She'd spent 5 years analyzing moon samples returned by previous missions. Now she would study the moon directly, living inside one of its ancient lava tubes. The main habitat was located 800 meters inside the tube, in a chamber the crew called Cathedral, a natural cavern 40 meters wide and 20 meters high, with a relatively flat floor that had been leveled and sealed with lunar concrete. But Cathedral was just the beginning. The lava tube extended for at least 5 kilometers beyond the habitat, branching into smaller tunnels, side chambers, and unexplored voids. Mission protocols restricted personnel to mapped areas only. Beyond the habitat perimeter, the tunnels were dark, unmapped, and potentially unstable. On February 3, 2028, Mission Commander James Reeves authorized an expansion project. Extend the mining operations deeper into the tube system to access a vein of subsurface ice detected by ground-penetrating radar. The work crew consisted of 6 people operating excavation equipment and tunnel boring machines. They were supposed to advance 50 meters per week, reinforcing the tunnel as they progressed. On February 11th, at a depth of 200 meters from the surface entrance, the boring machine encountered something unexpected. Not rock, not ice. A wall. The mission log recorded the discovery at 14:37 Greenwich Mean Time. Lead engineer Marcus Webb was operating the boring machine when the cutting head suddenly stopped, the equipment straining against something harder than basalt. Control, this is Webb. We've hit something. Boring machine can't penetrate. Requesting permission to inspect. Commander Reeves responded. Define something. Unknown material. Dense. not natural rock formation, it's too uniform. Reeves authorized a work stoppage. Webb and 2 crew members suited up and entered the newly bored section of tunnel. What they found shouldn't have been there. A wall, perfectly flat, smooth to the touch, composed of a dark material that didn't match any lunar rock classification. And most disturbing, it appeared artificial. Not appeared in the sense of resembling artificial construction. Appeared in the sense of definitively, unmistakably artificial. The surface showed tool marks, deliberate shaping, geometric precision impossible in natural formation. Webb took samples. The material was incredibly dense, harder than titanium, with a crystalline structure that didn't match any known mineral. "Control," Webb transmitted carefully. "We need Dr. Kozlov down here. This isn't natural." Sarah Kozlov spent 11 hours examining the wall. She documented every centimeter with high-resolution photography, spectroscopic analysis, density measurements, crystallography. And that's when she found them. Carved into the wall surface, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. Symbols. Not random scratches. Not geological features. Deliberate markings arranged in repeating patterns. Geometric shapes, circles, triangles, spirals. And something that looked disturbingly like mathematical notation. "Commander Reeves," Kozlov transmitted, her voice tight with controlled excitement. "I need you to see this, and I need mission control informed immediately." When Reeves arrived, Kozlov showed him the symbols under specialized lighting that revealed the subtle depth variations in the wall's surface. "These are artificial," she said, "made by intelligent beings. And based on the surrounding rock formation and impact cratering rates in this region, this wall is at least 3 billion years old." Reeves stared at the symbols for a long time. "Mission Control isn't going to believe this," he said finally. "They have to. Because this isn't just a wall. Look at the ground-penetrating radar data." She pulled up the scans on her tablet. The wall they'd encountered wasn't an isolated structure. It was part of something larger. Much larger. The radar showed a massive complex of chambers and corridors extending deep beneath the lunar surface. Geometric, organized, too regular to be natural cave systems. "It's a facility," Kozlov said quietly. "Or it was. Someone built something under the moon billions of years ago, and we just found it." Mission Control's response was immediate and classified. NASA administrators conferred with Department of Defense officials. Xenoarchaeology consultants were brought in via secure video link. The discovery was designated Code Black, highest level classification. Commander Reeves received new orders. Document everything. Do not breach the wall. Do not enter any chambers beyond the wall. Wait for specialized equipment and personnel to arrive on the next resupply mission. But while they waited, strange things began happening at Artemis Base. On February 14th, a surveying drone went missing. The autonomous unit had been mapping the unexplored sections of the lava tube beyond the habitat perimeter. It failed to return to its charging station. Search teams found it 2 days later, 400 meters deeper into the tunnel than it should have been able to travel on its battery charge. And it had been modified. Additional components had been attached to its chassis, components made from materials that matched the composition of the wall. Someone, or something, had taken the drone, upgraded it, and returned it. On February 16th, a crew member reported seeing movement in one of the unmapped tunnels. A figure, humanoid in shape, standing at the edge of the light range. When he shined his helmet lamp directly at it, there was nothing there. 2 other crew members reported similar sightings over the next 48 hours. And on February 18th, the symbols on the wall changed. Sarah Kozlov was conducting her daily documentation when she noticed it. New markings had appeared on the wall's surface, carved with the same precision as the original symbols, but arranged in a different pattern. "They're responding," she whispered into her helmet radio. "Whatever is down here, it knows we're here, and it's trying to communicate." Against direct orders from Mission Control, Commander Reeves authorized a small team to breach the wall. "We need to know what we're dealing with," he said during the briefing. "If something is actively responding to our presence, waiting for Earth's bureaucracy to make a decision isn't acceptable. We're the ones down here." The team consisted of Reeves, Kozlov, Webb, and 2 security personnel carrying standard-issue firearms, weapons that had been included in the base inventory for emergency contingencies but never expected to be used. They used a portable plasma cutter to create an opening in the wall. The material resisted, but after 6 hours of work they had a breach large enough to pass through. Beyond the wall was a corridor. Not a lava tube, a constructed corridor. The walls were smooth, composed of the same dark material as the exterior wall. The ceiling was precisely curved, a perfect arch, and every 20 meters, symbols were carved into the walls at regular intervals. "This is a road," Kozlov said. "Or a hallway. This was meant to be traveled." They proceeded carefully, helmet lamps illuminating the ancient passage. The corridor descended at a shallow angle, leading deeper into the moon. After 200 meters, it opened into a chamber. The space was vast, at least 60 meters across, with a domed ceiling that rose 30 meters above the floor, and covering every surface were more symbols, thousands of them, carved in intricate patterns that seemed to flow across the walls like frozen language. But the chamber wasn't empty. In the center stood a structure. A pillar, 3 meters wide and extending from floor to ceiling, composed of the same dark material but with visible seams, segmented sections fitted together with microscopic precision. And it was glowing. Faint blue light pulsed from within the pillar's seams, rhythmic and slow, like breathing. "It's active," Webb said. "Whatever this is, it still has power." Kozlov approached the pillar slowly, scanner extended. "I'm reading electromagnetic activity, low frequency. And something else. It's generating a field. Gravitational or magnetic. I can't tell which." She reached out to touch the pillar's surface. "Dr. Kozlov, I'd advise against," Reeves began. Her gloved hand made contact with the pillar. The blue light intensified immediately, pulsing faster, and the symbols on the chamber walls began to glow as well, lighting up in sequence like a cascading circuit. Kozlov gasped and pulled her hand back, but it was too late. The chamber was alive with light now, and through her helmet radio, barely audible beneath the static, came a sound. A voice. Not speaking English, not speaking any human language, but somehow, impossibly, comprehensible. "You should not have come here." The team retreated immediately, sealing the breach behind them as best they could with emergency foam and metal plates. But the voice followed them. Not audibly, not through their radios, through their minds. Every member of the breach team reported the same experience, a presence in their thoughts. Not hostile, but firm, insistent. "This place is sealed. You must leave." Commander Reeves convened an emergency meeting with the entire base population. He explained what they'd found, what they'd activated, and what was now in their heads. "We're evacuating," he said, "immediately. Mission Control is being informed, but I'm not waiting for authorization. This situation is beyond our protocols." But evacuating 37 people from the moon required coordination, spacecraft scheduling, orbital mechanics. Even in an emergency, it would take 48 hours minimum. And during those 48 hours, the presence grew stronger. More crew members began reporting the voice, even those who hadn't breached the wall. It appeared in their dreams, in moments of quiet. Always the same message. "Leave. This is not your place." Dr. Kozlov spent those 48 hours analyzing the data they'd collected from the chamber. She worked obsessively, barely sleeping, driven by the need to understand what they'd found. On the final night before evacuation, she called Commander Reeves to her lab. "I figured it out," she said, her eyes red from exhaustion. "The symbols. They're not a language. They're a warning." She pulled up the translation matrix she'd developed. The patterns on the walls mapped to mathematical concepts, orbital mechanics, astronomical coordinates, time measurements. 3 billion years ago, something happened on the moon. A conflict, a war maybe. This facility was built as a containment system. And whatever they were containing is still here, still active, and we woke it up. "What do you mean, containing?" Reeves asked. Kozlov showed him the final section of symbols she'd translated, the ones surrounding the pillar in the chamber. The pillar is a lock, or a seal. And the structure beneath the moon, this entire facility, it's a prison. For what? I don't know, but the warnings are clear. Whatever is imprisoned here must not be released. And by touching the pillar, we weakened the seal. Reeves felt cold despite his suit's temperature regulation. How much did we weaken it? I don't know, but the presence we're all feeling? That voice in our heads? I don't think that's the imprisoned entity. I think it's the security system. The Guardians who built this place left something behind to keep watch. An AI or something similar, and it's telling us to leave before we do more damage. What happens if we don't? Kozlov looked at him with genuine fear. Then the Guardians might take more direct action to protect the seal. And we're extremely vulnerable down here. The evacuation proceeded in waves. Emergency shuttles arrived from the orbital station, landing on the surface and loading crew members in groups of 8. Sarah Kozlov was scheduled on the final departure. She insisted on staying until the end, documenting everything, collecting every piece of data that might help future researchers understand what Artemis Base had discovered. As the base emptied, the presence grew more intense. The voice in their heads became urgent. "Good, you are leaving. Do not return to the depths. Remain on the surface if you must stay." During the final hours, Kozlov accessed the base's remote camera systems, cameras that had been placed throughout the mapped tunnel sections for safety monitoring. What she saw made her blood run cold. In the deepest cameras, the ones closest to the breached wall, figures were visible. Humanoid shapes moving through the tunnels with purpose. Not wearing suits, not affected by the vacuum. Moving toward the habitat. "Commander," she transmitted to Reeves, who was on the second-to-last shuttle preparing to launch, "they're coming. The Guardians or whatever they are. They're approaching the base." "How long until they reach you?" "Maybe an hour, maybe less." "Your shuttle launches in 30 minutes. Seal yourself in the airlock module and wait for extraction." Kozlov followed his orders, retreating to the surface airlock and sealing every pressure door behind her. Through the internal cameras, she watched the figures enter the main habitat. They were tall, perhaps 3 meters in height, composed of the same dark material as the walls and the pillar. Not robots exactly, but not biological either. Something in between. Ancient constructs that had waited billions of years to fulfill their purpose. They moved through the habitat with eerie precision, examining equipment, touching control panels, studying the human construction. One of them approached a camera directly. Its face, if it could be called a face, had no features except 2 glowing points of blue light where eyes might be. It stared at the camera for a long moment. And then, somehow, Kozlov knew it was looking at her specifically, aware that she was watching. The voice came through crystal clear this time. "You have been warned. The surface is permitted. The depths are forbidden. We will not warn you again." The figure turned and walked back toward the tunnels. The others followed. Within minutes, they had disappeared into the darkness beyond the camera's range. 30 minutes later, Kozlov's shuttle launched. As it ascended toward orbit, she looked back at the lunar surface through the viewport. Artemis Base's surface structures were still visible: solar panels, communication arrays, landing pads. but the entrance to the lava tube had been sealed. Not with human technology, with something else. The same dark material from the underground facility now covered the tunnel entrance completely. The Guardians had closed the door. NASA's public statement was brief and technical. Life support failures, solar radiation damage, temporary suspension of operations while engineers assessed repairs. The truth was classified at the highest levels. Only 17 people in the U.S. government knew the full story. Another 30 in international space agencies were given partial information under strict confidentiality agreements. The 37 Artemis Base crew members were debriefed extensively. Security clearances, non-disclosure agreements, psychological evaluation. Dr. Sarah Kozlov spent 6 weeks in isolation debriefing, sharing everything she'd learned about the symbols, the chamber, the pillar, and the Guardians. When she was finally released, she was assigned to a classified research division, the Lunar Anomaly Assessment Group, a small team of scientists tasked with analyzing the Artemis Base data and formulating recommendations for future lunar operations. Their conclusions were sobering. 1. The Moon contains artificial structures of non-human origin, at least 3 billion years old. 2. These structures appear to serve as a containment facility for something imprisoned beneath the surface. 3. An autonomous Guardian system actively protects this facility from interference. 4. Surface operations on the Moon are tolerated. Subsurface exploration beyond natural lava tube formations is forbidden. 5. Violation of this prohibition may result in direct intervention by Guardian entities. Recommendation: Lunar base operations may continue, but only on or above the surface. All subsurface tunnels, lava tubes, and caverns beyond 100 meters depth are restricted indefinitely. By June 2028, 3 new lunar stations were operational, small facilities, each housing 6 to 12 personnel. They were built entirely on the surface, using radiation shielding rather than natural cave protection. None of them went underground. The official explanation was risk management. Lava tubes, while protective, posed structural stability concerns. Surface bases with proper shielding were deemed safer. Artemis Base itself remained sealed. The Guardian entities had made sure of that. Ground-penetrating radar showed the tunnel entrance was now blocked by a solid plug of the dark material extending 200 meters into the lava tube. Human technology couldn't cut through it. Several attempts were made using remote drilling equipment. Each time the equipment was destroyed, not violently, but systematically dismantled by unseen forces and left in pieces on the lunar surface. The message was clear: the depths are forbidden. 9 months after the evacuation, Dr. Sarah Kozlov published a classified report that would shape humanity's understanding of its place in cosmic history. She called it the containment hypothesis. Her theory: the Moon is not a natural satellite, or rather, it didn't start as one. Billions of years ago, the Moon may have been a facility, a massive constructed object placed in Earth orbit by an ancient spacefaring civilization. Its purpose: to imprison something so dangerous that an entire artificial moon was built around it. Over billions of years, natural processes, meteor impacts, volcanic activity, regolith accumulation, gradually buried the facility under layers of dust and rock. The Moon became, for all observable purposes, a natural body. But deep inside, the original facility remained functional. The Guardians remained active. The seal remained intact, and whatever was imprisoned there remained locked away. We're not the first intelligent species to arise in this solar system, Kozlov wrote in her conclusion. And we're not the first to discover that some things should remain buried. The Guardians didn't attack us. They warned us. Because they know what's down there. And they've been protecting Earth from it for 3 billion years. The question is, what happens when the seal finally fails? Because nothing lasts forever. Not even alien technology billions of years old. And when it fails, who will protect Earth then? Lunar operations continue. Surface bases expand slowly. Research proceeds. But every mission brief now includes a section on subsurface restrictions. Every astronaut headed to the moon receives training on what they're not allowed to discuss publicly. And every night when Earthrise illuminates the lunar surface, someone in mission control monitors the seismometers scattered across the moon's surface. Because sometimes, very rarely, there are vibrations, deep underground, rhythmic patterns that shouldn't exist in a geologically dead world. Something moving. Something testing its prison. And one day, those vibrations might stop being regular and start being desperate. One day, the seal might crack. And on that day, humanity will learn what the ancient civilization feared enough to imprison beneath an artificial moon. We abandoned Artemis Base, but the moon didn't abandon us. It's still protecting us from what sleeps below. For now. The moon is humanity's closest neighbor. We've walked on its surface, we've planted flags, we've built bases. But the moon has secrets. Ancient secrets. Secrets that were old when Earth's first oceans formed. We thought we were the first to reach the moon. We were wrong. Someone was there first. Someone who left guardians to protect a prison we don't understand. And in the darkness beneath the lunar surface, something waits. New cosmic mysteries and space horror every Monday and Thursday. This was Why We Abandoned the Lunar Base.